Hey everybody. So I was going through my game collection the other day and I realized just how many Giants modules and different iterations of the Giants modules there are set in the world of Greyhawk. So first there's, the original ones, then there's this one, then there's this one, and then there's this one. So I thought it would be interesting to go through and tease out some of the differences, and that's what we're going to do today on Greyhawk Grognard. Okay, so the Giants modules G1, G2, and G3, these are really classic adventures, and they're classics for a reason. First of all, they were among the first modules published by TSR. So right off the bat, they've got that going for them, that they've been around the longest, so they are in more people's memories as, hey, this is what modules are like. They were done for very early convention play, their tournament modules. They were for, does it say? I thought it said on the cover. Yeah, from Origins 1978. So these were actually published in 1978. So, these were really the template a lot of young DMs such as myself had. The game itself is really built around dungeon crawling and mega dungeons and things like that, but all we had as examples are things like the Giants modules. So there's a big chunk of not just nostalgia, but also people's perceptions of how to play the game logistically and mechanically were kind of wrapped up in this, and that's been carried on for years and years. But all these different iterations of these modules have slight differences, and I thought, where some cases not so slight. So I thought I'd start with the originals, Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, and Hall of the Fire Giant King. The setup for these is very simple. Giants are raiding the towns of men, and the PCs are hired by the local lords to stop the raids. It's a very simple setup, very straightforward. They start off with the weakest of the three types of giants, which are the hill giants. The module emphasizes stealth. If you try to go in there swords ablazing, you're likely to really get squashed. You go through the hill giants, you kind of thin out their ranks a bit, and you figure out how to get to the frost giants. There's a magical transport, just because it's a tournament, so it's kind of easy to link the one to the other. And in the Frost Giants is exactly the same thing. It's you need to be sneaking around. Invisibility really helps. You're there basically to thin out the ranks of the Frost Giants and find the way to the last module, which is, of course, the Fire Giants. And there, things really get a little interesting, because even though in the first module, in the Hill Giants module, there's the ruins of a weird temple in the lower level of the dungeons. And in fact, I talked about this on my blog last week, I think. If you take a look at the link below, you'll find it. Even though we saw kind of a preview of it there was nothing about it in the Frost Giants, and it's only here in the Fire Giants module that you really get to see what's behind these giant raids. It's not just that the giants decided on their own to start raiding the lands of men. There's actually the Drow are behind them, and not just Drow, but Drow who worship the elder elemental god. So there's a lot of high weirdness down in the lower levels of the Fire Giant King that really will puzzle and it can really throw your PCs for a loop, because they're expecting, we're just going to be fighting fire giants and red dragons and fire-related things, and all of a sudden there's these dark elves that nobody's ever seen before. Because remember, this was 1978, so the Drow hadn't really been fleshed out yet. Nobody knew really what they were. There was a one-line item in the monster manual, but nothing, no real details. So it was a real innovation at the time, to have the dark elves down there being the power behind the fire giants, and that of course led off to the next series of adventures, which I'm not going to get into here because I want to focus on the giants things today. So that was pretty much it. You had the three modules. Everything was pretty straightforward. Go in, kill a bunch of giants, go to the next one, pick up a bunch of treasure. That's the basis on which the rest of this is going to proceed. Now, next up, we see this, Against the Giants, Dungeon Modules G1, G2, G3. This was mostly just a reprint and a collection of the first three modules. It's got the maps of all of them, and as you can see, the maps are a little smaller than they were in the originals for some of them. Some of the maps are just as big as they were. They're all in that classic blue, which I gotta love. And it's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty straightforward reprint. There's some new art that they put in here, like this piece. But some of the art is exactly the same, like this piece. So they did a couple of things. They put it all together. One notable thing that is in this version of the module that is not in the original published versions, they give you tournament characters. And this was not in the original modules, even though they were originally run as tournament modules at Origins. You didn't actually get the tournament characters until 1981 when they republished it in this collected thing. And not only does it give you the stats and all that other good stuff, but it also gives you what spells they have. And one of the things that strikes me about this is that it really gives you insight into how the designers expected the game to be played, in these modules to be played. Because if you look at some of the magic items here, there is Dust of Disappearance, there's Potions of Invisibility, there's all this invisibility magic, a Ring of Invisibility here. There's a lot of stuff. Again, Dust of Disappearance, lots of healing magic. So there's the real expectation, it seems, is that you're supposed to be skulking around inside the giants, based on what they have given you for the tournament characters. And I think that's an interesting little bit of trivia that you don't really see if all you have is the originals. You miss out on that. And I've actually run this at conventions myself, and both with the tournament characters as given and without the tournaments as characters as given, and it plays completely differently. Because if you give the PCs characters, if you give the players characters that are just standard, 8th to 10th level characters with randomly rolled magic items, their options are kind of, we're going to have to go in there and kill a bunch of stuff. If you give them these characters that are sort of tailored for a stealthy sneak around thing, then that's how they will behave. And I loved that. I thought that was a very very interesting insight when I realized that that's what they had done with those characters. So that's the first difference that we see in terms of mechanics versus presentation, is that we have the tournament characters here, and they themselves provide insight by virtue of what they're given in the tournament scenario. Now, next up, we have Queen of the Spiders, and this is, in my opinion, where the whole connection between the giants and the Elder Elemental God seems to start getting overlooked. This is another compilation of not only G1, 2, and 3, but also D1, 2, and 3, and Q1. So it has the whole series is all in this one thing, and you can see that actually in the corner. It lists all of their numbers. But this is really where the focus seems to go away from the Elder Elemental God and towards the Demon Queen Lolth. Has a very different start than the originals. In this adventure, there's a tie-in to the Slave Lords. That there's like a prequel kind of scenario where the Slave Lords are kind of dogging their heels as they go to Sterrick, in the southwest of the Flyness, and this is where you have that the famous big black bubble over Istvin, which is Lolth trying to kind of attack the capital of Sterrick, and the PCs are sent on a mission to destroy the giants in order to get rid of that big black bubble. And there's a king's agent who's there who keeps pushing them in the right direction. You know, if they finish off the hill giants without going on to the frost giants, he'll set them on there. If they finish off the fire giants without pursuing the drow, he'll tell them to go back and finish the job. And the various endings of the scenario are all about, you know, if the PCs defeat Lolth, then the big black bubble will, you know, then Sterrick will be saved and so forth. They do indeed reprint all of the original G1, 2, and 3 modules in here, but sort of bafflingly, they keep in the bottom of G1. They keep the stuff about the Elder Elemental Eye. There's still the Temple of the Eye there. The Drow who are controlling the fire giants are still the renegade Drow who are opposed to Lolth, and there doesn't seem to be any attempt to explain that. It's just, Lolth is the bad guy at the beginning, then we realize that the giants aren't really following Lolth, but go after her anyway. And that's where I think we see the beginnings of where this whole idea of the complexity of the scenario is originally published, with the Elder Elemental God and the factions of the Drow and so forth. That kind of gets swept aside and ignored, because now, as the title indicates, Lolth is the big bad guy, and that's really all they really care about. And I think that's kind of a bad thing. And that brings us to the final iteration of this particular series, and that's Against the Giants. This was published in 1999 as part of the 25th anniversary collection. And this, once again, dutifully reprints all of the original G1, 2, and 3, although the scenario is completely different now, and they even give a ton of different ways that you can reuse the material, but it's really, they leave a lot of that legwork up to the DM to fit this new scenario where there's a new alliance led by storm giants or cloud giants, and they're reinvading everything, and they've conquered some stuff, and it's just very and plugs in with some of the other things that takes place in 583, I think 584 of the common year in Greyhawk. So it's part of the Greyhawk Wars timeline, and it's just it's, on the one hand, they kind of throw the stuff in there for no good reason, and they don't change it to accommodate the new material. So it's really, it seems like almost a cash grab, that they wanted to fill it out and put some ties to the original stuff. To their credit, though, they do, in the beginning, in the preface, they give a thing about using the classics with the new material and treading on holy ground. So they're aware of the background of the modules that they're using in here. But again, if they were going to do this, and once again, they put in the Temple of the Eye stuff with absolutely no context whatsoever. There's Drow in there, there's the lava. It has nothing to do with the scenario that they've described in the book, let alone what happens in the later chapters with the storm giants and things like that. So it's just, it's really an odd thing that they put together here. I mean, obviously they did a lot of work on writing it, but then they just kind of jammed in the Giants modules, the originals, with no thought as to what function they were serving. I mean, they talk about moving the hill giants to the barrier peaks, and King Snur could be the subject of this other giant king instead of being a king himself, but they don't tell you how to do it. They just kind of toss out a couple ideas and let the go ahead and run with it. And it seems weird that they would even bother, because if the whole point is to put a new, fresh spin on the original modules, then it seems like you'd want to do an upgrade of those modules to accommodate this new scenario that you've put together. Show how things have changed in the intervening 10 years since the original steading, or the original glacial rift was overthrown. See what the new generation of hill and fire and frost giants look like now. How have they changed the below? How have they kicked out the Drow? What are they doing with the former Temple of the Eye? That, I think, would have been a lot more exciting to see, rather than just giving you the originals, giving you a paragraph or two, and saying, yeah, okay, here you go. So anyway, I hope you found this kind of walk down memory lane with the different iterations of the Giants modules of interest. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell. Please consider going to my Patreon. We've got a big project coming up this year, and if you're part of the Patreon, you'll get some insight into it. The dog is telling you. The dog right now is saying, go onto the Patreon. And if you don't, there's a web store, hit my blog, there's all kinds of free downloads over there. And hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments, and I will talk to you later.